Murder at a popular retail store. Probably the last place you'd expect to see this.
It was really brutal. The wound that I remember most was there was a perfectly circular wound on her skull, like a puncture wound from the hammer.
A phantom killer who is not all they appear to be.
The most vile, the most extreme act you could ever commit.
And an eyewitness forced to backtrack through all of her testimony.
She needed to come up with some explanation for that, and that's really when her story started to fall apart.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's Crime Exposé takes us to Bethesda, Maryland. Barely 10 miles north of Washington, D.C., Bethesda is known as the home to Walter Reed, the medical center where U.S. presidents are treated. A homicide in a local shop would bring unwanted attention to this quiet suburb, spotlighting a brutal murder and a killer whose cover-up of the crime soon began to unravel until there was nothing left to hide. The crime occurred after hours in a local shopping district. The store was a branch of Lululemon, an international brand of fitness apparel. After a brief disturbance, all was quiet until the next morning when police responded to a 911 call from a distraught manager.
When they walk in, there's glass shattered. There's blood on the floors. There are mannequins and other items turned over. The registers are open and there's cash missing.
It looked like a robbery. A trail of bloody footprints made its way to the back of the store where police found Jayna Murray, an employee.
Jayna was found in a small hallway, lying face down in a pool of her own blood. And this was a lot of blood, and it was clear immediately that Jayna was deceased.
She had obviously been running away from someone, reached the break room and hallway, and nearly escaped.
And down through there's a door that would lead outside of the store. Like if you push on this door, like the fire alarm will go off. It's like one of those doors, but you would come out and you'd be in the back of, it'd be sort of essentially in an alley. And that's where Jayna was trying to get to. And she came so close to that door, her bloody handprint is on the handle of that door. That's how close she came to escaping.
Somewhere else in the store, a woman was moaning, suffering, clearly in pain. She was Brittany Norwood, another employee who had been there when Jayna was murdered and somehow survived.
Down the hall in a bathroom, Brittany Norwood was tied with zip ties, her ankles, her hands bound. She's bloody on her face, but she's alive and she is conscious.
Brittany had a simple explanation for the carnage that surrounded her.
Two men attacked her and Jayna, wearing, all dressed in black. One took Jayna to the back, the other took her into the restroom area of the store, and then raped her.
It looks as if though there has been a robbery. It looks as if these two women are victimized. Jayna's dead. Brittany is tied up. There's blood everywhere.
The thieves had attacked Jayna Murray with at least 5 weapons, striking her more than 300 times. One of the weapons appeared to be a hammer.
It hit her so hard in the skull with the hammer that the hammer broke through her skull.
As the killers rained blows down on her, Jayna gradually slid to the floor where she took her last breath. A clothing store hardly seemed the place for this type of crime to unfold, or for 30-year-old Jayna Murray to suffer such a horrifying fate.
She's getting a master's in business administration, and so she's working at Lululemon, but she's really hoping that that'll land her something more long-term in the business side. Jayna was described as being very outgoing, totally full of life, adventurous, someone who was always smiling, a great attitude.
Her co-worker, Brittany Norwood, was 29. She had also been a college student, awarded an athletic scholarship to play soccer.
While she was there, she was caught stealing from her teammates, and ultimately she was expelled and lost her scholarship. I think when that happened, Brittany really lost her way for a bit. Fast forward a couple of years and she was sort of finding a new purpose. Brittany was hoping to become a personal trainer and even open her own gym, possibly.
On the night of the robbery, Brittany clocked out and Jayna closed the register. After they shut the doors to the shop, Brittany realized that she had forgotten something inside.
Brittany called Jayna back to the store. Jayna came back, parked her car right in front of the store. And I think that Brittany had told her that she had left her purse inside of the store. And so they both come back into the store, which is now dark.
It was 10:05 p.m. The store was silent until two men rushed through the now unlocked doors and attacked Jayna and Brittany.
Jayna never saw this coming, at least that first blow, and it caught her good. And Jayna put her hand on the back of her head and then was dazed and stunned and then put her hand on the wall to steady herself.
As the thieves beat the two young women, several people at a nearby store heard the noise.
There were witnesses, what we call ear witnesses. And what that means is these are people who heard things.
On the night that Jayna Murray and Brittany Norwood were attacked inside the store where they worked, ear witnesses at an adjacent business overheard the commotion.
The Apple store was debuting a new product, and so there were people next door waiting to get into the store.
And so there was a line outside of the Apple store, and some of the customers waiting in line noticed that the Lululemon store had been opened and was looking in there going something doesn't seem right.
That something sounded like a heated argument.
Several of those people told the police the next day that they heard a woman, they heard an altercation. They heard a woman yelling, "Please no, oh God, no, don't do this, or you don't have to do this."
Unfortunately, no one took action.
There was an opportunity here for so many people to have saved Jayna's life, and I think it's one of the most tragic part of this case, that nobody did.
When they responded the next morning, the police had to deal with the aftermath of the robbery.
You have the dead girl in the back. This girl claims that she got raped, and we're gonna take her to the hospital, have the rape kit done and all of that.
Police would soon learn that Brittany Norwood had not been sexually assaulted. This directly contradicted her story of what happened in the store. But at that point, the police had little reason to doubt her, given what they saw when they responded to the 911 call.
And then had gone in and then saw Brittany lying in the bathroom sort of moaning and was like, oh my gosh, right? Because when you just see that, you just see this girl with her hands behind her back and she's got blood on her face, at first look, I don't think that anybody would have looked at that and thought twice at that moment.
So of course they're going to assume that Brittany's a victim. It's pretty convincing on the outset. It's only when a detective comes in and starts really investigating and digging into the evidence that they find that Brittany's story just doesn't line up.
And that's the thing, right? Because initially her story is very simple, right? But as the investigation goes on and the police find Jayna's car and that there's blood inside of the car,
Brittany explained that the robbers wanted her to move the car, so she got back in the car, but didn't go for help?
it's sort of like, hang on. One of your assailants let you leave the store to go move her car, and you came back? This doesn't make sense.
Detectives also scrutinized the bloody shoe prints that the assailants had tracked around the store as they destroyed merchandise and attacked the two women. There were 2 sets of footprints, and here again, something didn't add up.
If there were really 2 people walking around, you would expect the tracking to track all they're stepping on each other's footprints. But that's not what you saw. You saw just one layer of shoes, then on top of that another layer of the men's shoes, and that was it.
The print patterns just didn't seem natural.
And the men's shoes sort of made this funky step where they had walked back towards where Jayna's body was, and then made this weird step over, and then you don't see those footsteps anymore, which is sort of that's not how anybody would ever walk.
The critical moments in Brittany's story weren't fitting together. When detectives pointed this out, Brittany regrouped and tried again, but her explanations became less and less convincing.
He got my stomach and my chest hurts, and I was trying to fight him. he hit me in my head.
How can investigators tell when a suspect is lying?
When a suspect is in the interrogation room, they have a story, they've even practiced it, they start telling it, right? However, it is very hard, what people don't realize, it's very hard to remember lies, even small lies. So when they tell a story over and over again, and a skilled investigator will ask them to repeat certain details and they'll ask in a different way, the details very often will change and fall apart.
And at that point, the suspect must have an inkling that their story is beginning to collapse.
When this happens, when they're questioned, people will start to panic. So when they're panicking, they feel like they have to cover up the lie. So then comes another lie to cover up a lie to cover up a lie. And the lies kind of just mount, and the pressure really starts to mount. And then a person can't remember very, very simple parts of the story. So that's where things usually fall apart and where a suspect might begin to crumble.
Was it possible that this tale of larceny and murder was pure fiction?
The answers to so many of the police officers' questions were, I don't know. I don't know. If your story's true, you would have an answer to these questions.
The investigation into the murder of Jayna Murray is barely a week old, but in the police interview room, Brittany Norwood and her story are coming apart at the seams.
Each time that she's being interviewed by the police, she's gaining more information. She's starting to get a better understanding of everything that the police are learning. And so I think that she had learned that there was blood in the car, and she needed to come up with some explanation for that, and that's really when her story started to fall apart.
There are definitely people who in the course of a homicide are going to try to fake their own victimization. So the fact that Brittany tried to make it look like she was victimized, I have seen this before. The problem with this, and where it usually fails for people like Brittany, is that they don't harm themselves in a significant way. So the harm is not real.
So it's kind of like a Hollywood movie injury. The blood looks real, but the injury is not.
On the surface, it looked like Brittany was bloodied and she had scratches. But after Brittany's taken to the hospital and after she's able to clean up, it was very apparent that she wasn't really injured in any significant way. And so this is where the plot to injure oneself as part of this scheme usually falls apart for perpetrators like Brittany.
Soon, investigators had enough evidence to charge Brittany Norwood with the murder of Jayna Murray. And people like Donnie Nepper, who had just received his jury notice, would decide Brittany's fate.
When I went into court that day, I had no idea that there was going to be this big case going on. There were so many people there. I was like, what is going on? Like, what's happening here today? And it wasn't until later that I heard that, oh, today's the day of the Lululemon trial.
Donnie was an unusual selection as a jury member because he was a lawyer himself.
And I knew that I could not be stricken for cause because there was no reason to strike me for cause. Yes, I am a local attorney, but I don't know anything about this case, and I don't have any relationship with anybody involved in the case.
As the trial began, Donnie Nepper and the other 11 jurors learned what actually happened on the night that Brittany Norwood asked Jayna Murray to return to their store. Police say Brittany had not forgotten her wallet. She had shoplifted some merchandise that day, and Jayna was planning to report her to their manager the following morning. At this point, police say something fractured inside the mind of Brittany Norwood.
Brittany takes what's called a merchandise peg off of the wall towards the front of the store, which is essentially about a 12-inch piece of iron or piece of metal, probably roughly the size and shape and weight of a hammer, essentially, and hit Jayna on the back of the head with it as Jayna was walking away from her. Jayna never saw this coming.
Investigators say as Jayna tried to escape through the rear entrance of the shop, Brittany continued hitting her until Jayna lay still. Then Brittany got to work executing her elaborate game plan.
So she staged a scene with the footprints, but she also tore the store apart and made it look like there was a scuffle, an altercation. She removed money, so it looked like possibly there was a robbery.
A robbery that never took place. After the prosecution destroyed her story, the medical examiner took the stand to explain the results of Brittany's violent rampage.
She had hit her so hard in the skull with the hammer that the hammer broke through her skull. And of course, the autopsy photos are of course very, what's the word? Very clinical, right? And so it's just laid bare, right? It's just this body there, and the wounds have been cleaned, and you can just see that she lived. She was alive to experience every one of these hundreds of wounds, and yeah.
2 weeks later, with all the evidence presented, the jury filed out of the courtroom to review the case.
We arrived at a verdict in less than a minute. I mean, it was open and shut. There was no defense. This was a no doubt about it case. The defense did not put up a defense. She was so clearly guilty that there really wasn't any deliberation or really much argument about it.
Brittany Norwood was sent to prison for life, closing the book on this grisly murder case.
We have to ask, what would make someone commit such an extraordinary act? And that's the question here for Brittany Norwood. What would possess a woman who gets caught for shoplifting an item that's $100 or less to kill someone to keep the secret?
I mean, clearly she's a very disturbed individual, and a little bit that I knew about her, it doesn't seem like she would fit the profile of somebody who would do such a thing. Right? She had gone to college. She was an educated person. She had played soccer at the collegiate level. She was working. Obviously, she had a job. Right? I would think that she had some aspirations for herself.
There were whispers of dishonesty in Brittany's past, but nothing to indicate a proclivity for violence as extreme as murder.
My lasting memory, the thing that I will always remember about this case, is that as the medical examiner took the stand and they were going to show the autopsy photos, that all of Jayna's family had left the courtroom except for her dad. I was so moved by that. The fact that her dad stayed in the room. I took that as such an act of love on his part, that he was going to be there for his daughter through this, and that he was brave.
Caught red-handed, Brittany Norwood chose to kill another human being over an incident of petty theft. Her overreaction didn't fit the situation, but the punishment she was given certainly fit the crime. And now, it's time for today's Safety Spotlight. Because you never truly know what someone is capable of, employees should avoid handling workplace disputes by themselves. If you have a disagreement with a fellow employee or believe they are stealing, avoid confronting them and address your concerns with a supervisor. If you're still concerned for your safety, advise your HR department and law enforcement. Report any threats made and avoid being left alone with a coworker. And wherever you are, be it at home or on the job, if you see or hear something suspicious, say something. Call the police and let them investigate. It's always better to err on the side of caution. You never know when your call might just save someone's life or even your own. For all of us here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe.